Hey everyone, and welcome back to The Foundry by Forge College. I'm absolutely thrilled you're joining us for today's explainer. We are going to be diving into a genuinely fascinating topic, representing fungible tokens and multi-token ID design. Just to give you a quick map of where we are, this is part of our Introduction to ERC-1155 and Multi-Token Concepts section, which sits right inside the Mastering ERC-1155 Multi-Token Contracts module of our broader track on NFTs and decentralized identity. Now, if you tuned in for our previous lesson, examining execution optimizations, you know we got pretty deep into the mechanical weeds of how transfers actually work under the hood. But today we're taking off the hard hats and putting on our architect glasses. We are shifting from the pure mechanics of moving tokens around to the overarching architecture of how we represent these tokens in our smart contracts code. Now, you might be wondering, how on earth can a single smart contract elegantly hold 1,000 completely different token types without, completely breaking a sweat? It's kind of an architectural mystery, right? Well, the choices you make about how to represent your tokens right at the beginning will fundamentally shape everything else down the line. We're talking minting flows, metadata linkage, gas costs, cross-contract compatibility, the whole shebang. It is all about pouring the right foundation. Here is our blueprint for this explainer. 1. The ERC-1155 grid metaphor. 2. Structuring your token IDs. 3. Deciding balance granularity. 4. Real-world token blueprints. And 5. Key design takeaways. All right, let's jump straight into section 1, the ERC-1155 grid metaphor. Before we look at any raw code or get bogged down in binary data, we absolutely need a strong visual mental model. Smart contract data structures can feel, incredibly abstract, so let's make them wonderfully physical. Imagine we're drawing this out on a massive piece of drafting paper. In Solidity, the internal storage layout is essentially a mapping of an integer to an address to another integer. I want you to picture a giant, infinitely expanding grid. Each tile coordinate on that grid, that is a token ID. That's your identity. Now, on top of those tiles, you can place stacks of coins. Those stacks represent the balance for a specific account. This metaphor is so powerful because it completely separates identity, meaning which tile you're looking at, from quantity, how high the stack of coins is on that tile. The contract itself is completely agnostic. It literally does not care if a tile holds millions of identical fungible coins or just one single, unique, non-fungible item. Moving right along to section 2, structuring your token IDs. So we have our grid, but we need to figure out exactly how we label and identify these different tiles, because how you label your tiles changes absolutely everything about how your token operates. There are basically 3 primary strategies for structuring your token IDs. We're going to weigh the engineering trade-offs between keeping your smart contract blissfully ignorant or making it highly aware. First up, flat IDs. Imagine taking a piece of masking tape, scribbling the number 42 on it, and sticking it to a tile. That number is completely opaque. To understand what tile 42 actually means, you have to go consult an external, off-chain metadata notebook. It's wonderfully simple to set up, and honestly, it's great for rapid prototyping. But the catch is, if anyone wants to understand what's actually sitting on that tile, they have to put down the smart contract and go read your messy metadata notebook. All of that semantic richness is pushed completely off-chain. Next, we have bit-packed IDs. Instead of a piece of tape, imagine pre-printed markers permanently inked right into the tile itself. Using the bits of the integer, maybe the upper left of the tile shows the token family and the lower right shows the specific serial number. This is incredibly powerful. It allows your smart contract to do fast on-chain classification. By just applying a simple bit mask, your contract can instantly say, yep, this is a fungible sword, without ever needing to open up that external metadata notebook. And finally, we have namespaced IDs. Picture entire rows of our grid heavily shaded, reserved strictly for specific producers or issuers. The highest bits of the ID dictate the namespace. This is literally the ultimate governance tool for multi-issuer environments. If you have multiple independent entities minting assets inside the exact same contract, reserving a row for each one makes it trivial to avoid collisions and seamlessly track provenance. Okay, let's look at section 3, deciding balance granularity. Now that we know how to label our tiles, let's shift our focus to the stack of coins actually sitting on them. You have a major architectural choice to make regarding the coins in your stack. Do they represent coarse, whole units, or the absolute smallest transferable subunits? If you choose whole units, like say one whole concert ticket, it vastly simplifies your user interface arithmetic, but it inherently limits partial or fractional transfers later on. On the flip side, measuring in the smallest possible units, think Wei in Ethereum, brilliantly supports tiny microtransactions and fractional ownership. The catch? Well, it requires your client side to handle massive blockchain integer math, so your UI balances don't end up looking like international phone numbers. I want you to remember this golden rule. Semantics are externally imposed. The ERC-1155 standard does not care about your token's meaning. It doesn't enforce your IDs, and it certainly doesn't enforce your decimals. Your contract code, your math, and your minting conventions become the absolute source of truth. You dictate the reality of the grid. All right, let's make this concrete in Section 4, Real-World Token Blueprints. Abstract grids are fun to think about, but let's look at how these strategies actually combine to create real-world applications. We're going to look at 3 very distinct use cases that map perfectly to the 3 ID strategies we just discussed: massive in-game economies, complex event ticketing systems, and global tokenized commodities. Consider an in-game currency. This blueprint almost always relies on flat IDs. You assign ID 1001 to represent gold, and you measure those balances in the absolute finest, smallest units. Why? Because you want a player to be able to seamlessly spend 1.5 gold on a potion without completely breaking the game's math. Flat IDs keep the reference simple, and the finest unit granularity makes batch transfers and microtransactions incredibly straightforward. Now, what's really interesting is the event ticket blueprint. Tickets are a total nightmare of mixed fungibility. Think about it. You have general admission tickets, which are basically just fungible capacity. Any GA ticket is as good as another. But then you have VIP front row tickets, which are highly unique, non-fungible serials. Bit packing is the brilliant solution here. You encode the ticket class in the high bits and the serial in the low bits. This allows the contract itself to apply class-specific transfer rules effortlessly directly on-chain. Lastly, we have tokenized commodities. Think about tracking barrels of oil or tons of grain. This blueprint heavily employs namespaced IDs. You might have a dozen different suppliers interacting with one unified marketplace contract. Namespacing ensures that supplier A's green doesn't magically overwrite supplier B's green. It inherently tracks strict physical provenance. And naturally, mapping out these complex, multi-layered architectures is exactly what we focus on in Forge College's learning programs. It's how we bridge the gap from theory to production-grade deployment. Bringing it all home now with Section 5, Key Design Takeaways. We've covered a ton of ground today, so let's lock in the absolute golden rules of multi-token design. If you take nothing else away from this explainer, remember these 3 pillars. First, be explicit. Document exactly what your ID encodings mean and how your balances map to the real world. Do not leave developers guessing. Second, favor consistency. Use the exact same granularity and ID generation policy across your entire contract to avoid nasty surprises on the client side. And third, plan for integration. Always align your choices with what major wallets and marketplaces actually expect to see. Because ultimately, clarity and consistency are essential for interoperable tooling. If your token is a massive puzzle to decode, marketplaces simply won't support it. Understanding these rules sets you up perfectly for our next lesson, ERC-1155 Implementation Overview and Next Steps, where we're actually going to start writing the code that brings these architectures to life. So I leave you with this provocative architectural question. Will your design choices empower the next generation of Web3 marketplaces or break them? The power is entirely in your hands and on your grid. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today for this explainer. I highly encourage you to head over to forge.college to dive deeper into this subject and explore our extensive library of Web3 related topics. Keep building, keep learning, and I will see you in the next one.